Anyway, not sure what's going on with this weird shit. Nonetheless, talking about this, I think Lord of the Rings teaches you something of which I've been preaching upon. And I don't want you guys who are going to become creatives in any given industry, I don't want you to make the same mistake. What Tolkien's audience of supporters and fandoms, or whatever you want to call it, what they show you is that there is a big time prime audience that gives a fuck about canon continuity, and there's some value in caring as much about the product as they do, right? Now that's the disconnect I think that a lot of people missed. Not just with this, obviously Marvel, DC, and all this other stuff that's all been ran into the ground. What it boils down to is that these people care more about or care less about it than you care about it. The people that are not controlling and not creatives on the ground about all of this shit. So here's the thing. I've said before, there's a difference between these damn creatives and CEOs and all that. There's usually some liaison, blue-haired weirdos funneling bad information to other parties, and they have convinced a bunch of people that actually pay the money to make stuff happen that this is what people want. And you're seeing kind of this backlash, which is something that, unlike anything they've seen before, because generally when it happens, let's say with the Marvel or DC or stuff like that, it's always, well, it's a different universe, it's all this, everything's interchangeable, and no, it's all that. So they accepted it a little more than what they had. I think they're accepting it now less, but they accepted a little more. But now with Lord of the Rings audience, you're dealing with a far more intellectual audience, and they're not going to stand as much as they did for other brands, be it Star Wars, all of that stuff, Star Trek, all of that. They're not going to stand by and allow that to happen. But there's something that I want you to pick up with if you are creative. Now, I think the difference between how we end up in this situation is that you see all these properties got sold, and some of these have been existing for years. I mean, decades upon decades. And there was a technological age, dark age, let's call it that, where people had to go through the proper channels and people had to go through the big guys in order to get the material out there. And this is how all these properties end up in the hands of people that are just these like mega corporate entities, don't really have any care about it. That doesn't have to be the case anymore. That's not to say that it's easy, but we're having more self-publishers than what we ever had. And we're having more people that are able to with materials because stuff has gotten cheap. Cameras gotten cheap. You got filmmakers and people that are able to do their own thing without having to go through the channels that they had to before, and they have a direct line of sight with their audience. That is such an important thing that I think a lot of people miss. And don't devalue that, or rather, let's say, ignore that if you are creative in the future. Your audience picks up on how much you care about the product. If you care about it flimsy, if you're flimsy with your care about it, and it's like willy-nilly, who cares? There's a rendition here, a rendition there, and nothing matters, canon doesn't matter. You are showing your audience that you really don't give a shit about that. And that works for certain audiences. I'm not going to act like that there isn't one for it. But I think if we're talking about scale, definitely if you're trying to be successful, I think if you value your property as much as they value your property, your supporters, and I'm an example of this, your supporters will take you to the fucking moon, bro. They'll take you all the way. They'll take you, wherever, they'll take you so far, financially, respectfully, they'll take you wherever you want to go because you showed them that you care but much about that product, that you're trying to sell them as the customers, that they care about it. That's the big disconnect that so many people miss with the current modern era of entertainment. That what really is happening, and you've heard me word it like this before, is that you care more about it than the people that now control it and are creating more new media off of that brand than they care about it because they're narcissists. They care more about their worldly shit and what they want to have presented. And these brands just act as a means to tell it. They don't give a shit about that. And now things have become so convoluted. You got guys like myself who have been long time pull lists having with Marvel, DC, who don't even fucking have pull lists anymore because we're off that. They've somehow been able to deter me of all people from that and folks like myself. Now, I said that to me, it's going to be some Renaissance era that's going to come out of this. But I think that really and truly happens as folks really value their brand. I talk about gatekeeping. Now, value, whether it be gatekeeping your fandom and your business, to where you keep these bad actors out, because if you see any sort of success, they're going to come for you. That's just what's going to have to happen. But I think you should preserve the sanctity of it. And the reason why that's so important, and maybe it's not worth hitting a lick and getting short-term gain immediately because you don't want to do the grind, but there's this pool of money that some mega corporate entity is willing to give you, and bam, you're willing to just sign off everything. Like, the audience picks up on this. And I think there's going to be more money in the long run, more support in the long run. And then that's really when we're going to transcend generations, much like Marvel and DC had done, much like Star Wars did, Star Trek did, much like Tolkien did. When people start caring for their brands and putting the necessary things into place to where even if they leave this earth, that sanctity is protected. I think that's something that you should be doing from the start when you are trying to get your company off the ground. Or you are, more so, who I'm referring to is the creators. Do not undervalue the importance of you even presenting yourself and showing them by action that you care about the brand that you're trying to sell the customer, because the customer picks up on that. And if I could give any advice to anybody that is trying to be a creative in any sense, in any industry, it's just that. If you show this audience that has said, you know what, the mainstream shit, I don't want anything to do with this. I'd rather support people that, don't hate me. Okay? Those people really pick up on whether or not you care about your brand. And they will take you to the fucking top in the event you show them, with action, of course, that you care much about it as you're trying to convince them to care about it. You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.